through this constructive, we understand is that their side of the world keeps these obligations unchanged, even when they actively harm people. But our world allows religious laws to evolve, ensuring they always align with justice and ethical progress. We moving ahead, we come in and say why rational interpretation ensures ethical and consistent morality. So, how rational morality changes moral? So it allows for universal ethical principles to take place. If religious rules are rationally analyzed, they must align with justice, fairness, and human dignity rather than historical biases that are formed outside of context, not right now. A great example of that would be, instead of restricting women's rights based on scripture, a rational approach asks, does this limitation serve justice in today's world? In a society that has evolved from patriarchal society to a society that serves equity and equality more. If not, it must not be considered, which their side of the paradigm fails to do, and our side of the paradigm is very well in doing so. Right? It also comes in and prevents contradictions within religious systems. Many religious rules conflict each other when the text is taken literally. An example of that would be some religious texts promote peace and tolerance while also prescribing harsh punishments, such as, let's say, stone pelting for a person who has committed the sin of, let's say, adultery. Right? Rational interpretation allows for prioritizing ethical consistency and objectivity, which their side of the paradigm does not. So through this constructive, we understand our comparative base is that their world remains stuck with moral contradictions and unfair social hierarchies, where clearly because they're not able to update what they're trying to do. But on our side of the world, it creates a fair, coherent, and logical religious moral system. Right? And also, we come in and talk about preventing harm and religious extremism. Panel understand that blind faith enables justifications for harms. A characterization of that would be when religious laws are followed purely because they are decreed. They cannot be questioned, even if they cause harm. Throughout history, divine command theory has been used to justify religious wars and persecution and terrorist attacks. And let's say killing a person because they're not following your monotheistic faith. Or let's say this person is of a lower caste or of a different interpretation than me. That is why uh, they do not deserve to be treated with equity and equality. Right? Discrimination against minorities, let's say LGBTQI individuals, caste systems where they're told that, hey, you are inherently shameful of being who you are actually. Right? And punishments that violate modern human rights, to just stone belt a person because they slept with another woman or man, that does not make a lot of sense in today's day and age. Right? Why rational interpretation prevents all of this from happening on a comparative scale on our side of the world is that ethical reviews should be a standard for religious laws. If a religious rule causes harm or violates justice, rational interpretations allows for modifying or discarding it. It reduces manipulation by religious authorities, where let's say godmens and babas cannot come in, religious leaders cannot come in and manipulate faith for personal or political gain by guilt tripping and being promoting hate, guilt tripping, shamefulness, and fear amongst the general populace. If we come in and apply rules logically, that would not happen. So, on a comparative scale, through this, we understand that their world would enable unchecked justification for violence and discrimination because, again, faith cannot be questioned apparently. But our world comes in and ensures all religious laws are evaluated through an ethical and factual lens, preventing harm and extremism. Right? Then again, we come in and talk about strengthening faith and religious institutions through our side of the paradigm. How? And why? Rational interpretation makes religion stronger, not weaker, is because many people leave religion because they see contradictions, harmful practices, or outdated rules that no longer make sense in modern society. So a rational person would just think that, hey, why is a woman not allowed to go out of their house without the permission of a man? Or me being gay, why am I told that I'm inherently sinful? So I'd rather just be an atheist, right? Faith should be a source of guidance and wisdom, not a rigid rule book detached from reality. So, why rationality on our side of the paradigm strengthens religious institutions? Because religious principles remain intact but adaptable. People do not need to abandon their faith when they see flaws. They simply reinterpret obligations
And
to align with their modern values. And religious becomes more inclusive and accessible to all people. Many people feel rejected by religion because they feel alienated by outdated doctrines. And for all of those reasons, couldn't possibly be more proud to.
I thank the speaker for that speech. To start off the case on opening opposition, allow please.
Be a moment. Just to make sure you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, POS verbally, please. I will not be looking at the chat. One thing I'm uncertain of from the government's case is why exactly then the constant need to challenge divine comments, or the constant need to like challenge these religions, something that is good. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, most of these religious conflicts or conflicts that have happened in history happen because of reinterpretation, or because of these challenging of religious norms, or challenging of the way religions work, challenging the way people think. It has always caused conflict. It has always caused polarization and fragmentation. It has brought no net benefit, because till today, when even in a society where everyone is rational, and to a certain extent we are secular and rational, there's still so much fragmentation, there's still so much conflict within religion because of the over rationalization of religion. What exactly is then our burden? I think our burden in opposition is simple, is to prove to you then that you don't need to constantly challenge a religion, or you don't need to over rationalize a religion for it to work out. At the end of the day, religion is not there to completely command your life. It is there for you to be able to use it as a guiding source. It is there as a sense of solace, because at the end of the day, I think we need a question: what exactly then is the purpose of religion? What exactly has been the purpose of religion? Is because I think at the end of the day, for most societies, except for like the most extreme ones, it is one that is used as a guiding force, but also a sense of solace. But I think then the sense of solace is one that is extremely important, that they don't get on their side of the house. What exactly is a world that uses factual and reason and analysis? Then one thing we need to understand is it probably varies too much, because at the end of the day, things like logic and research is still something that can contradict each other, and contradicts each other every single day. We see it in status quo now, how research are still things that have both sides of like that have both sides of the coin, that have like that are still constantly being questioned, that there's always like different variations of research and results coming out, right? We see things in things like the environment, or even things in abortion, whether or not fetuses are actually children, I mean actually alive. Things like these are still, it still cannot be rationalized using research, or still cannot be rationalized using any form of solid data. But secondly, reason of what is important varies a lot, because not everything is rational, right? I think even philosophically or instinctively, there's still a lot of things that are like that don't use rationality, right? Things like knowing that killing one person to save 1,000 is still something that is frowned upon, or still something that is wrong. Or killing one baby to save 1,000 adults is still something that is morally corrupt. Or three, information is just hard to access, right? Things that are factual or based on results are just generally harder to access by most people. And also, data is mainly pure like result driven, right? It means like equating moral good to like in data or like rationality is one that I think is very hard to prove. But then what exactly then does like divine commandment looks like? I think it looks like it was created generally to based on like customary teachings and like things like survival tips to ensure order, right? I think that's why like that's how we preempt any form of like argument regarding like exploitation. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these commandments existed to like maintain social stability. It looks like things like, oh, don't commit murder, don't eat unclean food. These were all things that were to a certain extent common sense, right? But secondly, I think reinterpretation to a certain extent can still exist. But also, I think most societies are not completely religious, right? There is still some level of rationality that exists outside of religion, right? There's still, even if let's say religions preach divine teaching, there is still secularism, or there's still like outside forces, or like it's not the mere like the only thing that like guides religion in the first place. But rationality can still exist outside of religion, right? People don't need to surround their lives around religion. Like in, for example, in how status quo, there's like the way laws are governed, and how there's always this middle ground between religion and secularism. This brings me to my first argument today, then, on why the over rationalization of religion is something that is harmful. One thing we need to understand then, that over rationalization of religion strips it of its spiritual essence. But but firstly, what's this true? It's very simple. It's just the fact that the source meaning behind religion is like this spiritual fulfillment. It's this divine intervention. Is this believing that something divine exists, right? But what's important? Because throughout history, religion has been a form of solace for people. It has been a way for help to help people in during their most vulnerable moment. It has been a way to like it has been a way for them to seek some form of gratitude, or seek some form of like connection towards this force that actually is supposed to help them. But the problem with over rationalizing religion is that you take away this solace, you take away this access to this form of comfort that is supposed to protect the most vulnerable people. Because at the end of the day, religion is there to protect the most vulnerable people that don't have access to practical things, right? For example, like don't have access to things like therapy, for example, or don't have access to things that can actually help them, right? I think this is when religion is the most important, right? This is when religion is there to actually guide these people through this or give them some form of hope through this. When you strip away the idea of like divine existence, or like you strip away, or like you create this idea that you have to over rationalize everything, you take away this form of comfort, you take away this form of like this protection. But secondly, I think you must understand that rationality is not always a good thing, right? I think like it's just for example, it's like the whole Thanos thing of like killing half the population for like everyone else to live a better life. I think it's just rationally correct. But at the end of the day, it's not moral. It's not something that can like that is like that preaches to your conscience, right? But I think that's why it's very important, because the over rationalization of your thoughts or your actions is still something that is extremely harmful, because it still can be used to manipulate and justify harm under the pretense of logic. Because at the end of the day, logic is still something that can like that is not an all like be all, right? Just think about it, like even in debates, how every single topic has like arguments to and for it, and it's still unclear and uncertain as to like what exactly is correct then. But so, which is why like I think the idea that logic or rationality is like gonna like solve everything is something that is like not true. Because like at the end of the day, things like slavery, eugenics, or like discrimination, or like any form of like oppressive societal norm is still like has always been like backed up using logic, right? It is because people ignore this like divine intervention, or ignore this like moral compass to like justify these things that has been explaining that it has been happening all this time, right? But secondly, it's also the fact that religion is just so which is why this is like okay. So, it's my second argument, which is like it's better for religious development as a whole, right? Because I think the idea that you have to use you have to use rationality or logic is something that is extremely like inaccessible. Because if you think about it historically, most people lack access to education, they lack access to illiteracy or like any form of scholarly knowledge, which means you make religion extremely elitist. You make religious extremely like extremely like hard to access. But what this also means is that religion becomes severely limited. It's difficult to establish like a cohesive and widely accepted religious doctrine, and there's like no clear moral guidelines and a sense of certainty. But it also means that the moral compass that you want to create is one that is extremely uncertain, because at the end of the day, you can rationalize a lot of harmful things that can exist. And for all these reasons, oh.
I thank the speaker for that speech to further the case on opening government DPM.
30 seconds. Right. So Shiv Jani going as the DPM. I'll be preferring to take POIs between the 4th and the 6th minute. Please don't verbalize your POIs. Either raise your hand or put it down in the chat. I'll take it whenever it's convenient for me. Prefer pronounce he, they. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the case of opposition is extremely unconvincing and supremely uncomparative. What they essentially go ahead and claim here is that, okay, they have three claims at best. Firstly, conflicts happen. Conflicts are not going to happen because like people are never going to challenge stuff. Panel, this is entirely untrue, because people are always going to go ahead and challenge the doctrines that exist, because people want to have this sort of supremacism of their own faction of religion, of their own ideology or version of truth. People will think that their version of the religious interpretation is essentially going to be true. This is because people are necessarily wanting to propagate a sort of ideology rather than play along with their faith. And this stems from beliefs like, say, megalomania, or say money, or certain sort of influence in society, because of which people are going to go ahead and challenge religious doctrines. So challenging religious doctrines is always going to be inevitable. Challenge is going to happen. What as side gov we come ahead and try to put across is that religion is not essentially bad. We are never anti-religion. What we simply go ahead and say that as opposition further claims that religion is a guiding source. Yes, religion is a guiding source, but religion needs to be looked at with a lens of logic at a point in time when these edicts or teachings which act as a guiding source are antithetical to the needs of the society, are antithetical to the needs of what is basically perceived as good later. So at a point in time when these guiding sources uh, become problematic in themselves, we need religion to change, and that is the change that we come ahead and provide to you. Opposition comes in and says that this guiding source is just going to exist in a monolith, but then caste system is always going but then there are religious teachings like say the perpetuation of the caste system, wherein a progressive interpretation is necessarily likely to happen. Op then comes ahead and says that religion would never change. But then panel understand that in an era of increasing secularization today, when there is a secular justice system that exists, religions have an incentive to liberalize and reform in order to A, attract new members into their particular religion, and B, retain the current members and ensure that people do not become extremely alienated with overly conservative preaching. Religions have the incentive to keep and attract members to get like more souls into heaven, and that is why a more progressive interpretation is necessary. When Op comes in and says that killing one baby to save 1,000 is wrong, basic logic dictates you to say that go ahead and save those 1,000 and not just like stand there and die yourself simply because religion says don't kill, don't murder. That is the kind of interpretation that is necessary. And why is this also more and more likely to happen? Two pieces of reasoning for this. A, there is going to be increased capacity because religion currently is extremely vague, and there is always room for more sort of interpretation, and this could likely lead to a more judicious sort of interpretation, which would lead to more buy-in, wherein the religions themselves would welcome this sort of change, because the religious followers themselves would want that more people would join in, and the youth who is becoming more and more distant from religion would necessarily buy into religion, because these people who are mainly these religious workers are those kind of workers who are essentially very old in age, or do not have any sort of connect with the religion would then get this more sort of buy-in, which is really important for the religion. Op then comes ahead and says that religion is the guiding source for you. That is literally the only claim that we get from side opposition. We do not have a problem with religion being the guiding source. We have a problem with when religion propagates ideologies and systems like animal sacrifice, systems like say child marriage, say sati, and other practices that are antithetical to like a secular society. And the second piece of reasoning on why there is going to be increasing capacity of adoption is because there exists a secular justice system. The secular justice system will come ahead and act against practices which are not lining up to like what is required for the society, which are extremely fundamentalist in nature, which are extremely majoritarian, and cause harm to a certain section of people. For example, the sati system was abolished by a secular justice system. The triple talaq system was abolished by a secular justice system. These secular justice systems will at a point in time inevitably ensure that these systems are weeded out, because they are necessarily propagating public good. Now then again, what are the other benefits that we come ahead and do? There is going to be a higher degree of accountability on our side, because like actions are going to have consequences. What essentially will happen in their counterfactual is that simply because something says so, that is going to legitimize literally anything that you do, any sort of animal sacrifice that you do, any sort of other harmful things that you do. You can simply get a free ticket out of it because my religion says so. There is also going to be a higher degree of cognitive dissonance on their side. Why? Because cognitive dissonance is essentially that practice which says that the religion says something and you do something else. When religion says that like animal like sacrifice animals for certain tasks, and then you go ahead and turn vegan, or for example another religion going ahead and saying that like cow slaughter is bad, but then you go ahead and consume beef, is essentially going to cause a lot of cognitive dissonance, which is going to be really bad. We we ensure that there is that there is a drop in sort of fundamentalist interpretation of religion. There is going to be like lack of like jihadi ideologies which will be propagated. There is going to be like a cycle of there is no, poor people, there is going to be a much better outlook towards poor people, because poor people would be expected, because of this because of this religion saying so that they need to donate a certain alms to certain people. Poor people will be alienized because they are not able to do that, because literally the religion says, ask them to do so. Poor people can then interpret the religion to how they interpret it. The rich people would also be in a much bigger would also be much more likely to oppress these poor people, because the rich people will alienate these people, because there is a cycle of karma that is being propagated by religion, that you did something bad in your previous life, and that's why you're poor in this one. So the rich people will, instead of helping them, would ensure that, like, just let them be, and let them survive as they are. There is going to be a rise in this baba culture, where when godmen like this Ram, Rahim, or people will just legitimize things like trigger warning rape, and like simply get away with it, because they are godmen, they are next to religion. This is going to increase in an extremely and intensely polarized world, to which the responses that we get from side op is that, okay, religion is the guiding force, and religion maintains social stability. And based on all these points, that and also that religious scriptures are extremely outdated and old and need updation, and there is incentive, there is capacity, and there is all sorts of benefits in order to adopt this. So because of all these reasons, couldn't possibly be more proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank the speaker for that speech. To further the case on opening opposition, DLO, please. Yes, you both.
POI. Why? Why? Why?
Thank the speaker for that speech. To start off the case on closing government, member of Gov, please.
Yeah, give me like 30 seconds, please. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Is there no way to share a timer on screen?
1 second. I take notes on my laptop, so I don't think I can do that. Andrea, can you screen share a timer?
Just give me a second. Is the screen visible? Uh, yeah, perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. This is Trianshi Singh going as member of government. Prefer pronoun she, her. For POIs, please don't like verbalize that you have POI or something like that, and do not even do it in chat box. If you can, please raise your hand or use the reactions. It is more easier for me to then actually notice that there is a POI. Okay. POI preferred after 5th minute actually. Okay. Starting my speech on the self count of 3, 2, 1. Starting with rebuttal. So op comes and says about that it will cause fragmentation, polarization in society, and conflict. I said in the first speech. See, this is a THP motion. People are very used of having reason.
Excuse me, could you give me a second? Can I test out the timer one time before we start? I apologize for the interruption.
It's okay. Sorry, I didn't.
It's okay.
Should I start? Wait. Okay.
Just a
Give
second.
me a second, please.
Wait. Just give me a second. I'll say 3, 2, 1 and then start. Okay.
Okay.
Really sorry. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Rebuttals first. So opposition comes and says in the first bit that it will cause fragmentation, opponent society, and conflict when there's like very much chaos because of having this interpretation, having this logic and reasoning, because people will have different opinion, different interpretations. See, when we're talking about this THP motion, people are used to of having logic around them. People are used to of having this question of every tradition, because now if somebody, because I'm so used to of giving people reason for my tradition. Now if somebody asks me that why are you following this particular tradition or particular religion or particular religious practice, then I'm very happy to give them the reason to do so. I am not offended just because they question my religion, because I'm feeling like, okay, this is what God told, God said so, and that is why I'm very offended because they questioned my God. No, I'm living in this world that it is very very common for people to question their customs and their traditional practices. And it is very it actually fosters most inclusivity, because now if someone questions my religious practices, I am not offended by it. I'll just explain it, and if I can question their religious practice and they are not offended by it, and in the end, if we do have different opinions, if we do have different moral values, different alignments toward our personality and behavior and mindsets, then it is okay to do so, because people are used to that. People do not take it as an insult anymore. That is why this world is much better than having this world where everything that is religiously created, and people are just unanimously following it because it is something that's said by the God. Now they say that people trust God and their religion in their vulnerable times. Yes, they do. People trust God in the religion when the vulnerable time. That is why it is important for them to have a reason for what they are following. Because now if I'm in a vulnerable time, and now if I'm looking for actually some support by my God, and I will think that, okay, my God should support me, my God is there for me. Now I will question that, okay, what practices I'm following. If even when I was 10 years old and I asked my mother what is the reason behind this practice, and she said no, this is something by God and there's no reason, my faith will actually fumble at that point, because I think that my God is actually perpetuating things that do not even make much sense, because nobody explained, nobody gave me the reason for this practice in the first place. Then how do I know that even this God exists and this God will come and help me reasonably, because the practices I'm following do not make sense, or so the faith we are propagating is more genuine and more stronger, because people now know that everything they're doing is for a reason, and their God will support it for support them. Their faith is much stronger. And about the cures and atheism, that all these things, see, there are different opinions. People can become atheists for multiple reasons. That is very symmetrical thing. You cannot just say that just because they are having this rational interpretation, people are, even scientists are sometimes a believer of God. So you cannot just say that this regional interpretation, just because now they are having a scientific interpretation for the tradition, they will just start questioning existence of God. They will start, their faith will fumble so much. So even many educated people, many scientists believe their God so much, and does not. It is a very symmetrical thing. Now okay, all agreed that this is a THP motion. So I said that, yeah, there's a polarization and all. There's no, because no one is taking offense to anything when there's religious question, because that is a very normal thing for them, right? They said religion teachings are evolved over time in their paradigm also, but again, what is the guarantee that this evolution is actually not biased? Because if in the past some powerful people or some powerful caste actually did some changes to my religion and nobody questioned them, because they thought that they thought they have the authority to do so, because nobody would question. They will just justify these changes because on the name of God. And then again, then again, these evolution, these changes are not justified and are not that you cannot just actually guarantee that these justification, these evolution will not be biased. And who will, as you said, that this when you ask us that who will like talk that this which interpretation is correct, again, who will decide that this evolution that is happening over time in your paradigm is correct? Now I'm talking about why our yeah. So I'll come to my arguments now. Why is our better? Why is our paradigm better? See, in our paradigm, there's reduced psychological burden of guilt and fear in religious followers, because many religious traditions instill fear of divine punishment if rules are not followed exactly. People are often told they are sinful for normal behaviors, leading to guilt and anxiety and self-hatred. A rationalist religious system would evaluate moral actions based on their real-world consequences, not supernatural punishments or anything like that. So there is better mental health, because people wouldn't live in constant fear of divine judgment. They will follow more about, they will think more rationally, and there is more self-acceptance, because people would focus on being ethical and kind rather than worrying about breaking arbitrary rules which are set by who knows which system evolved through hundreds of centuries and by what peoples. Fewer, there are also less cases of religious trauma, because people raised in strict religious household would have their healthy relation with faith, as I said, because they are comfortable now being questioned on their religious customs. So in our paradigm, many LGBT individuals from religious backgrounds suffer severe depression, anxiety, because they are told their identity is sinful in a rational world. This question would be like, does being LGBT actually harm anyone or not? Why is it actually bad? Since the answer is no, these people would no longer be stigmatized or made to feel ashamed. Also, there is a stronger and more inclusive sense of community, because many religious communities are exclusive, meaning you must follow strict rules to belong. This can lead to isolation, discrimination, and division, because people actually feel offended when you're not. If I'm a very religious person, you are not actually doing some form of virtue exactly how it is supposed to do, I will feel offended. I will not like you as much as I was supposed to. So in a rationalist system, religious communities would be based on shared values, not strict adherence to rituals. There will be stronger community bonds. People wouldn't be judged for minor differences in belief, and since religious, there'll be more interfaith collaborations also, because religious divisions won't be as rigid. As I said, people won't be offended by any of it. We are this is very normal phenomenon. There is less religiously motivated discrimination, because people would be valued based on their character, not the religious identity. Now, also there is in our paradigm, there's a more practical approach to morality, because in divine command-based morality, an action is good, either good or bad, simply because God said so, or this is what they're taught from generation, which they never questioned why, not because of its actual consequences. This creates moral dilemmas of why where people must follow rules and that don't make sense most of the time. So a rational system would define morality based on their harms and fairness and well-being, leading to more practical ethical decisions. Also, they're like we see that there will be fewer unnecessary religious practices, because people won't be forced to suffer just to prove religious devotion. Rules would be based on real world benefits, not ancient texts. There will be less corruption, abuse of power by religious authorities, because many religious leaders have the absolute power over because they claim to speak on behalf of God. This allows them to control followers, often for personal gain. Also, rationalist world would demand logical justification for these religious rules, preventing leaders from exploiting faith. Also, about see, in our paradigm, there's also a more environmentally conscious world, because some religious beliefs discourage environmental responsibility, arguing that the world is God's creation. Humans should there are many customs which actually interfere with that. With this, I would like to add. Thank you so much.
And the speaker for that speech to start off the case on closing opposition member of our police.
Give me 30 seconds, please.
Okay. Hello, are you good to go?
Yes, yes. So this is Nandini, prefer pronoun she, her. I'll be going as the member of opposition. I would really, really appreciate if POIs are not verbalized and raise of hand. I'll try to take POIs, so you can raise hand anytime between the unprotected minutes. I'm not very sure if I'll be able to take one. With this, I'll be starting my speech at a reverse count of 3, 2, 1 now. Okay, so panel, first of all, I found that there was a major character missing from the opening houses, which means that how does these religious obligations actually look like? Though the opening op does come here and give me a very, very skewed definition of these obligations, which looks like the Sati Pratha or the Teen Talaq system or the caste system, which is very, very biased. Why panel? Because number one, this caste system or this discrimination, which the opposition has been in the both houses have been saying about, this is not really a religious obligation. No religious text, nothing of a religious sort is promoting discrimination. This is more of a cultural evolution of mankind. This is less to do with religion and more to do with culture. We have living examples. The Hindu texts of Mahabharata and Ramayana have always been inclusive. We have seen the inclusivity of LGBTQ even in at those times of texts of Mahabharata and Ramayana. And then the opposition coming and building their whole case on this discrimination doesn't seem right to me. Then the Sati Pratha Teen Talaq system, which opening up gives me the case of. I'm sorry if I confused op and gov. I'm talking about the government. So which opening government gave to me was again very, very biased, because these obligations are not just limited to the Sati Pratha or the Teen Talaq. These obligations panel actually look like the prayers, the ceremonies, the probably the cremations, how they are performed in a certain religion, how you are probably using fire to cremate a person or you are burying a person. These are what the religious obligations essentially look like. The examples which opening government is giving is very, very biased, and especially the examples which are given are already been banned in many countries out there and they are not followed. So I don't understand what is the very, very relevance of those arguments or those examples in this debate. Then the factual analysis also evolve over time, and rationality
POI.
is subjective, is very please don't verbalize. I'll take if I'm seeing it, I'll take if I can. So, as I was saying, that the opening opposition told that how this rationality can be very subjective and how it varies from person to person. But my father believes doesn't necessarily means that I believe the same. So it is very subjective, and you can't just say that we'll go ahead with factual explanations only, but because who decides these factual explanations after all, panel? And then the progressive. It will be very progressive in nature, and their paradigm would look where people would be progressive and only factual things are followed, etc., etc. Again, that is very symmetric panel, because as the government opening up itself told about Sati Pratha, Teen Talaq system, the Bali system, and etc. This is being eradicated. These systems are not very well currently existing in the society because of the knowledge, because of the this swift progression of the people, that people know that these systems might be very regressive. These systems might not actually even align with our religion, and that's why people are opting out of the system. So saying that progression only is on their side, it is a very false statement, because it is very, very symmetric. Because in our side of the paradigm, which is the status quo, we can see how people are evolving generation by generation. As the generation shifts, people evolve. Even the closing government just came and said that how if I don't get an explanation, I would probably not have a religious faith. Again, I feel like that the point that the newer generation is asking for explanation, the point that newer generation is interested in these facts and figures itself, so that the evolution is happening already. This house doesn't need to prefer it, or doesn't need to strictly prefer it, because that is already somewhere existing, that progression, that swift change of people being mindful also of their religious practices. Now, coming to major pointers which as closing off we would like to propose. Number one, it's my choice, it's my attorney what kind of religious practices or religious obligations I want to follow, leaving the very, very intense obligations aside, which the opening of promoted. It is my my choice whether I want to go ahead and do a prayer or not, whether I want to do a ceremonial cremation or whatever in a certain way or not. So ultimately, it is kind of this house preferring it one thing over other is taking that choice away from me, who as a person might be very much religiously inclined, who really wants to do it. And why do I want to do it, panel? We need to understand that these religious things, if factual or not, we are not as op coming here and saying that all these religious things are very, very factual and all these have a scientific base. But even if they are not factual, even if these prayers do not do any substantial good to me, what they do is they provide me emotional and psychological support. These simple we have simple Gayatri mantra in our religion, which doesn't do any kind of miraculous benefit to us, but what it gives me, it's give me a support, it gives me a psychological belief, a psychological strength. And even this factual and rationality point of view, again I would like to mention that there is a simple word of om which was used in Hindu, which is used prevalently in Hindu religion. There was no factual explanation, but in current years it has the factual explanation has emerged that this word can do good to people. So similarly, the factual explanation is very dicey, and they didn't correct me that how would this look, who would do this, how would this rationality come up. Go ahead with the pure really quick.
We never go and claim religion is bad and certain practices need to be done away, but only those contrary to public policy, and we will adapt those which are logically consistent. And then you go ahead
Sorry,
and
that
claim,
wasn't a POI at all. That was just a claim you were trying to make on your side, which you should have done in your speech. That wasn't a question, panel. Again, trying to tell that poor people would be targeted and stuff like that. This is again, panel, very surface level talks. When government comes and tells me all of these things and how they solve these problems just by using a factual thing, it is very surface level of government to say that if you try and use factual data and you try and use rationality, then all of these problems will magically be eradicated. Very biased of government to say it, because these problems of discrimination, these problems of poor being alienated or animal sacrifice, etc., etc., they do not just come from a religion, they come from a collective cultural belief which needs to be changed. Just rationalizing the religion or doing one thing against the religion won't help. Second thing, I do not understand, panel, that what is the practicality or rationality of their claims. Again, because the claims they are trying to make again and again do not seem rational. These rational or practical, because how would this world look like then? How would a world in which these religious claims or religious obligations not be there, how would that world then look like? They panel, they fail to tell me that also. So I'll tell that how would their world size look like. Their world would be a world where probably people are now not following a particular religion. People are now not do not have that choice to go ahead and perform whatever obligations they want to do, whatever religious practices they want to do. Maybe it is just because of that they love their father and their father wanted them to do that practice. Any choice, it's my choice ultimately, panel. And that is why I feel like that government's case was very weak in this sense, and the whip would continue since my time's up. Thank you very much.
I thank the speaker for that speech. To sum up the case on closing, government covered. Hi, Gavvip. Can you please start?
Hey, there's a text by my teammate that she was speaking, but we were not able to hear her.
All right. Can you please ask them to reconnect?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Cool. So we are starting with the disconnection policy now.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, okay, great. Right, so my name is Masum, going as the Gov Whip in 3 to 1. I'll be taking POIs, but preferably in the fifth minute. Kindly please start the timer. Right, so I'll first start with immediate rebuttals. Firstly, they claim that these are cultural and not religious. That is not true. They are trying to mislead the house through misinformation. I'll tell you how. Because in the Mahabharata, it's not at all inclusive. As we see, Ekalavya cutting off his thumb because his guru was scared that he would take over the upper caste, right? Again, through his abilities, right? He would take over the princes who were upper caste. Again, Kunti sacrificed an entire Nishada community by setting them on fire in order to protect her own sons, right? So panel their claims that these are all cultural and these are not casteism is not rooted in religious texts is bogus. Either they are grossly misinformed, they are ignorant, or simply they are trying to lie about it and they are trying to mislead the house, right? Secondly, panel again elaborating more on the claim, caste system, sati pratha, these are all very religious. These are mentioned clearly in the Purusha Sukta hymn of the of the Vedic corpus. Also in the Manusmriti itself, which are all religious texts, right? Along with a legal text. Now, moving ahead, this entire debate, it's not just about being limited to the religious texts of Hinduism. It also includes the Quran, which is, again, entirely very oppressive towards women, towards people that they do not believe that they do not believe are worthy of living, whom they call as kafirs. So again, this debate is not just about one or two things or one or two religion. Now, third, they claim that the systems have been eradicated. Very firstly, to the max, the systems have been this systems of caste, the sati pratha, etc. They have been declared as illegal, right? So, firstly, that does not mean that they are still not practiced. Secondly, these systems are eradicated in the sense of a legal context only because of efforts from this rationalized systems, right? Which is, let's say, the judiciary, which is based on science, right? These are a result of religious reformers who believed in science, who attempted to reform this religion, who attempted to reform or change this religion based on science, on rationalization, not through a religious apparatus as they claim, right? So rationalization is something that is the only way to achieve these things, which is happening on our paradigm, and as a result of which the systems were declared as illegal in the first place. Secondly, the fact that these are not entirely eradicated or that problems no longer continue to exist is simply bogus because honor killings still happen. Intercaste marriages are still illegal. Before that, I extremely apologize. I would like to place some trigger warnings. Moving ahead, firstly, something that has been missing from both sides of the houses is religious obligation, right? So religious obligations, it's not simply reciting a mantra. It also looks in the form of fasting, right? Thing is, panel, in our paradigm, if a religion text tells me to fast, if I have certain health issues because of science, because I know medical science tells me that this is going to happen, my BP will go lower or higher if I eat something, or if I don't eat something, I will have the knowledge or I will have the common sense to opt out of it, right? So panel, this is something that is not happening in their paradigm. Again, moving ahead to further rebuttals, right? The entire off bench, they tell me that it's about broader issues, right? It's about whether climate change is real or not. But very firstly, it's about more proximate and specific issues. It's about whether women should attain autonomy. It's about women should continue to exist. It's about whether women should have the ability to talk back to their husbands or file for a divorce in case their husbands abuse them, right? Or whether they have the autonomy to file for divorce if they are unhappy in a marriage, right? Secondly, it's also about whether Dalits or lower caste people should be allowed to enter to schools, whether they should be allowed to access education, right? So this is not just about some broader issues that are not of immediate concern. These are about very important issues that needs to be immediately sorted out as it oppresses vulnerable people in a very proximate sense, right? Because they continue to be further oppressed. Third panel, they talk about how, in the context of abortion, it remains largely unclear. Panel, let's say I'm a religious person and I want to have an abortion, and I believe that abortion is healthcare, but my religion tells me not to. Now, because I have scientific knowledge, because now I know that abortion is absolutely important for the health of the mother, as well as in certain cases, if the fetus is already diagnosed with some problems, it becomes extremely imperative to abort it. I know that it should be done immediately, right? But that is simply not enough for me, right? I would need some sort of rationale to operate on or to satisfy my attachment to my religion. In that case, I will use this rational framework that is happening on our paradigm and understand and come to the conclusion that even God killed all the firstborn sons of Egypt, or he sent a flood to wipe out the existing population or wipe out life. So in that case, I would feel that, yeah, because I read through it, because I used science, because I combined all of these things and approached a rationalized framework, I'm able to do something for the benefit of my own health. Um, Again, panel, they do not tell me why this world is not needed. To the max, they tell me that religion is going to be something that's going to be detached from people, but we are here to tell you not. I'll tell you how, panel, because in their paradigm, if it is written that gay marriages should be illegal or gay marriages are not recognized, people will opt out of it, right? In our paradigm, because religious obligations are only based on rational apparatus, even the families, everybody is obliged to not follow it, right? So in that case, religion is more better retained on our paradigm. Again, panel, they talk about how conflicts are because of over rationalization. We tell you that it's a lack of rationalization. If I see a text that tells me to go against war against certain groups of people, I will use a rational apparatus to inform me that secularism is important, that respect for a different religion is important, and I will then choose not to opt into jihad or any other form of terrorism, right? So that is absent in their paradigm because, very simply, in their religious apparatus or in this books that they read through, there is no there is no secular framework, there is no scientific rationale. Again, panel, they tell me that how vulnerable groups will be able to opt into it as a form of therapy, right? But panel, that is not true. In fact, many people go to therapy because of religious panel. The problem with religion is that why interpretation based on scientific analysis is needed, because then we know that, okay, a Dalit is allowed to enter into a school and access books and read, not because he is of a lower caste, but because he's a human being, and that is not written in the religious books. For me to access or tap into that information, I need to stop analyzing things from a religious perspective and opt into a rational framework. That is why in our paradigm, religion is better retained. People continue not to be oppressed. With that, yeah, with that, I would like to wrap up my speech.
I thank the speaker for that speech. To sum up the case on closing, opposition upward, please.
Yes, just 10 seconds. Okay, Riddhima Watts, going as top whip, pronounce she, her, POI preferences in the 4th minute, starting in, yes, starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, panel. First of all, starting with the claims of the opening gov. The opening gov, first of all, tells us that because they tell us that they will try to mitigate the they will try to eradicate the religious interpretations or whatever that are against the public policy. That was one of the major claims panel. First of all, that is not an exclusive claim, that is symmetric on both sides, which is to say, we already told you how practices like, first of all, we do not concede to the fact that these practices like sati and animal cruelty and everything are what divine commands our panel in the books, divine commands that is directly coming from written in the books, that they're directly coming from the word of god. These things do not exist. And even if taking the worst case, like, okay, in religious books people like find these in some way, they are already being mitigated, because things against the public policy are against are what is the obligation of the judiciary to mitigate. That is, these are already being eradicated by the judicial system. And like, even if we are talking about religious obligations panel, so the point of obligation is already like does not exist, because these are already mitigated by the public policy. But even if these does not exist and an obligation, it does not mean on their side that these ideas won't exist in the entirety, because these things are still like these things that they do not concede to are already written in the books. These are already written these are written in the books, and people already read it. The people who want to follow god or follow these activities would follow them nonetheless. That does not mitigate on their side, because because this does not remove their existence in the entirety, right? That means that people who have this kind of ideology, who want to follow this, will still be following this. What if in their best case they talk about like how these practices will be abolished, which exist is symmetric on both sides, because we are defending the status quo. Sati, animal cruelty, everything is banned in this current status quo, right? What they are, even in our worst case, these things are already mitigated, while what they are ignoring on our worst case is the people who believe in this divine power. People who are helpless with their life, people follow religion when they are like do not people follow the talks of the religion many a times when they do not have anywhere to go, when they're feeling helpless with their life. They try to put their lives on in the hands or teachings of a divine being, so that they are given a sense of direction. They're completely ignoring these vulnerable
POI.
people, because yes, please don't verbalize. They're completely ignoring these vulnerable people, because I'll tell you why, panel. First of all, rational interpretation. First of all, we already told you how rationality is subjective. That means these interpretations are different for atheists, these the interpretations are different for believers. The people who believe in god, when these people who want to follow rationality come ahead and say that what your god said is wrong, these people will feel hurt and attacked. These people would want to remove themselves from this religion, because now their religion consists of people who do not believe in the one who made the religion, who made this who told these preachings itself, right? Because people's connection to god is very strong. People consider god as their alma mater. Sorry, people consider the god as their alma mater and their guide, right? When people are attacking the teachings of that person, people would want to detach themselves from the religion. And like the even the essence of religion, that is the provide direction and comfort, is completely lost, because now people their religion is full of people who do not concede to their ideologies. People want to remove themselves. And also, rationality would even question the presence of this divine being, right? Because rationality would say, oh, we haven't seen this divine, we haven't seen god, we haven't seen how god acts like in front of yourself, right? So that means rationality would like even question the presence of this divine being. That means on their side, if they like concede to rationality, it would only be mostly be catering to the people who are atheists, and the people who follow this religion, who find peace, solace, and sense of direction. They are stripped of their like this comfort zone, and they do not have any coping mechanism left, and because of which they are in a even more vulnerable state. While on our side, when this divine command exists, people who believe in God, people who believe in the existence of God, they, when they're feeling down, or when they're feeling like they do not have a lot of like things going right with their life, they still have someone to like follow blindly, or to follow concede to. And which is why these people would be better on our side. And secondly, the gov also talks about how more people would be joining this their religion, which would be good. On their side, they say that people will be joining, right? While on our side, the people who are already following the religion, that are much more in number than these people who are joining, would want to leave the religion, because now the crux of their religion is being questioned, right? The alma mater of like the guide of their religion is being questioned, that their teachings are not right. The people who will be leaving this religion are will be much more than the people joining this religion, which would be like the like a benefit that the stated does not exist. And also we take this over closing up also, because on the idea of divine retribution, I do not understand why this is wrong. Because like people, uh because of divine retribution forces people to follow something, right? And these things are like not hurting others, not like the things that are written in religious books panel, they are like very similar, like not hurting others, leading a moral life so that you get a better life in your like next birth, right? So when this divine retribution does not exist, the aim of the religion, that is to make people lead a better life, is not fulfilled in its entirety, because now people do not have any obligation or incentive to follow this morality, because people are not born moral, right? They are like, they have, on our side, when this divine retribution exists, they are forced to follow this, on the like maybe on the fear of being punished by God. That means they won't want to hurt others. Why? Because they have a fear that God would like they will receive divine retribution, while on their side this does not exist. Which is why panel we take this debate. Thank you. That's it for my speech.
I thank the speaker for that speech. Thank all of you for the debate. Virtually cross over, shake hands, give us 15 to 20 minutes. And then we'll start with OA. Judges, let's move to the Discord judges room. We'll take it from there.
Could we move to like a Gmeet or something? I can't access the Discord uses because of Wi-Fi restrictions.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Okay, thank
I'm gonna send
you.
a mute. Hi, judges, can you please join that Gmeet call?
Hey guys, great debate.
Thank you for the debate.
Yeah, good debate, guys.
Hi, Andrea, can you please join the Gmeet link I sent?
Yes, I'm trying to.